Rishikeshwritings, and today our guest is Jahanvi and Kamla. They are the sisters born in England, and since 9 years they were traveling in India, experiencing India, and why they are special because they learn our culture, they learn about the Hindi, they learn about the Sanskrit, they learn about the Indian classical music, and they spread that wisdom from India to around the world. And today we will discuss and talk how they started that particular journey, learning about India in their life. Namaste.
Namaste.
So Janvi, share with us why India is so important to you, and how's your experiences in India since childhood and now?
Okay, so basically my parents introduced us, of course, to the Indian culture, and we grew up with it. And so my first trip to India was when I was 2 years old, and we came for the Kumbh Mela in Allahabad. So it's from a very early age that we've been...
Now it is a Prayagraj.
Prayagraj, sorry, Prayagraj. Back then it was Allahabad, yeah. So we came for the Kumbh Mela, and then since then we've been coming to India. And then in 2008, when I was 9 years old and my sister was 12, we moved to Rishikesh, and we lived here for 6 years without leaving, and except for traveling around India.
So when you was a small 9-year child, so where you study in Rishikesh, or how you spent your time in Rishikesh?
Interesting question. So we both studied online. Our schooling was online, but during our time here, we studied so many different things like Hindustani Classical singing, Sanskrit, mantra chanting, yoga, so yeah.
So Lakshmi?
Kamla. Kamla is the name of Lakshmi, so it's perfect, yeah.
This is a new combination, huh?
Yeah.
So when you was in Rishikesh, so who's your teacher with whom you learn about the Hindustani classical music and how it's come into your basically heart? So which moment you hear about first time that music and it changed you?
Yeah, actually, so when we were much younger, we lived in America, and over there was where we first studied Hindustani Classical. So I think I was about 5 years old when I started the classes there. And when we came to India, we had many teachers in different cities all around India. So we were learning, because we were traveling a lot, so we were moving around and we met different teachers and we learned from all of them. So it was really like an amalgamation of teachings from many different people. And while we were living in Rishikesh, we were practicing our music every day and spending time singing and learning raga and bhajan and kirtan. Even recently, we have studied kirtan in Rishikesh a little bit. So yeah, we spent a lot of our time in childhood like singing and learning about Hindustani Classical, and then finally we got our diplomas in the music as well.
And Rishikesh is the home of ashrams and yoga. And which is the particular ashram you study these things also in Rishikesh?
There's no particular ashram, though we've spent time in Paramat ashram, and we studied with some people there as well, some kirtan. But while we were growing up here, our family, they were visiting many different ashrams, so we've been to so many, maybe most of the ashrams in Rishikesh at some point, and we've experienced so many different lineages and ways of teaching, different perspectives. So yeah, we were very lucky that we were able to experience so much of Rishikesh.
And what is the difference basically you both find learning a yoga, learning a mantra, learning a philosophy, a Hindustani philosophy, and learning in India and learning in outside of India?
Interesting question for you in particular. Yeah, that is an interesting question. So I studied for my Master of Philosophy in Oxford University, which is in England. And at the same time, I also studied Sanskrit in Karnataka, so in South India. So it was very interesting for me to bring together the Western and the Eastern ways of teaching this language. so that I can understand it from a Western perspective and their philosophy or their understanding, and also the way it has been traditionally taught in India for thousands of years. And that way I'm able to kind of bridge the gap between both of them. And for me that really helps when I'm teaching Sanskrit, because most of my students, they're not familiar with Devanagari, they're not familiar with Sanskrit. So for me it very much helped me to be able to teach this language to people from other countries around the world who maybe haven't experienced India so much, and so they can understand the traditional things but in a way that is accessible to them.
And there's many people that are interested in the language due to their interest in yoga and the deep connection between yoga and Sanskrit.
Yeah, that's true.
We saw in the West that there is a many transformation is happening in the name of the yoga. And what is your thought about this?
In the name of yoga,
Means like the people teaches goat yoga, people have different things, and you learn the yoga with a traditional way.
Yeah, well, I think some variations, they might give the name yoga, but if it's not like a genuine practice of yoga, then it really isn't yoga. But it's good in a way because it's spreading this knowledge of yoga to the masses. So people it's coming in their minds like a seed, and they're looking for more knowledge, which is
I was been chanting Sanskrit mantras since she was very young. But I studied it academically. So I studied all the...
I'm also interested in the academic side.
Basically, you're interested about the more depth knowledge from the practical way.
The more spiritual side.
More spiritual.
Yeah.
And you also plant lots of trees in India. So what is the journey of this planting a tree?
In 2019, we were staying at the Paramat Ashram, and we planted so many trees in different schools. So mainly during that time
to different places and meeting people, planting new trees for climate change, and it really helps reduce the carbon output. So this is something actually that my mom was really passionate about. So we were following her journey with that,
and we also went around Rajasthan and looked at some places where people are making big changes.
Yeah, by creating forests in that desert land and bringing life back into the land through reforestation programs.
And when you teach the Sanskrit language to the Western student, and you also teaching the Sanskrit language to Indian student, what exactly they say is are they have happy to learn Sanskrit from you, or they say okay, this is the philosophy or the wisdom which has come back to us.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and a lot of people they study Sanskrit in school, but they drop it at 10th class.
Yeah.
So
basically in India, we have Sanskrit from first standard to fifth standard, and after that we don't have any choices to continue this Sanskrit. We have to go to either college or different college for Sanskrit.
Although sometimes I've heard after fifth you can pick an extra language. So most people will pick French or Spanish maybe, and then very few people they also pick Sanskrit sometimes. So it's very interesting. But as I said, I mostly teach students from outside of India. So actually I don't teach students in India very often. Usually, all our students are from America, Europe, Australia, these places. But in some cases, maybe we have students of Indian origin who are born and raised outside of India, and so I teach them, of course, as well. And it's really nice to hear their beautiful pronunciation of Sanskrit because they've grown up maybe speaking Hindi or Gujarati or some other languages from the Indian subcontinent. So I love teaching anyone who wants to learn or anyone who comes to me. I'm happy to teach as much as I can, and of course to increase my own knowledge so that I can share more and give more as well.
Yeah, when you chant a mantra, when you share a mantra or singing a mantra, or you share about the Sanskrit words, Sanskrit term, Devanagari languages, what transformation basically you found within your physical body, mental body, and emotional body?
So when we teach mantras, we like to focus on the correct pronunciation of Sanskrit because the power is held in the sounds. So that's our main focus, to bring the experience through just the sounds, and that's what we've been doing.
And so by really focusing on teaching the correct pronunciation of Sanskrit, then we can, unlock the ability for the mantra to have a positive effect on our mind, our body, our environment. And so of course it depends on the mantra, like which energy are we invoking by which mantra. So of course what we feel, our experience might be different depending on the mantra, right? If we're maybe reciting a Devi mantra, we'll feel that Shakti energy, or if we're reciting Shiva mantra, maybe we'll feel some calmness and peace. So there's different qualities associated with different mantras. But the real focus for us is pronunciation of Sanskrit and making sure that everyone knows how to pronounce each word accurately. So that's,
Our main teaching so far has been the Yoga Sutras. We teach recitation of the Yoga Sutras.
So basically, a Patanjali Yoga Sutra.
Yeah, exactly.
And what are the reviews actually you get it from the student, and on which part of their life these learning Patanjali Yoga Sutra, or you're sharing about the mantra chanting, you share like Shiva mantra, Devi mantra, how these mantra help them in their life, and what they say?
Well, most of our students are actually yoga teachers. So for them, the reviews we've heard from them is, they've been able to integrate some of these mantras or Sanskrit words or Yoga Sutras into their teaching and their own yoga practice. And so it's adding, another layer of depth to the asana practice, because they're accessing these sounds, and Sanskrit is really the language of yoga. So they're able to experience, a more deep experience. But I mean, our students have given us some very inspiring reviews, I would say.
And you have a project called a Samadhi Collective. Please share about that particular project and how this project started.
Okay, so in 2020, during the COVID pandemic, we were actually in the Himalayas in Almora, and we
were staying in Kasarde.
Kasarde.
So we were spending a lot more time together, and we were doing all of these different practices, and we thought, let's share something with people.
So Jahanvi is a great artist and also graphic designer, and then I have those academic studies that I completed, and so we started posting with her designs and artworks and my understanding of Indian philosophy from my degree and from my upbringing in India, and we started creating these posts where we would explain one concept or one word in Sanskrit, and to really give a deeper understanding of that word or that philosophy. And people were enjoying it, I think.
Yes, and then people started asking, we want to learn the Yoga Sutras, because we shared a little bit about it.
Yeah.
And so we started offering small classes, and then it got bigger and bigger.
Would you like to share one of the Yoga Sutra in your own chanting language?
Yeah, sure. We will recite the first 16 sutras of the first chapter of Yoga Sutra, which is the Samadhi Pada. So we'll begin.
Pratamo dhyayaha samadhi padaha artha yoganuशासनम् yogascitta vritti nirodhaha tada drashtu svarupe vasthanam vritti sarupyam itaratra vrittaya panchataya क्लिष्टाः प्रमाणविपर्ययविकल्पनिद्रास्मृतयः प्रत्यक्षानुमान आगमाः प्रमाणानि विपर्ययो मिथ्याज्ञानम् अतद्रूपाप्रतिष्ठम् शब्दज्ञानानुपाति वस्तुशून्यो विकल्पः अभावप्रत्यक्षः तत्र स्थितौ यत्नोऽभ्यासः स तु दीर्घकालनैरन्तर्यसत्कारसेवितो धृतभूमिः द्रष्टानुषविका विषयवितृष्णस्य वशीकारसंज्ञा वैराग्यां तत्परं पुरुषख्याते गुणवैकृष्ण्यम्.
And my second last question, in Hindustani classical music, we learn from a guru or we learn from a teacher.
Yeah.
In Urdu, we called it a ustad, and in Hindi, we called it a guru.
Yeah.
So, which is your basically guru and a gharana? Which gharana you basically learn that Hindustani classical music?
So our Gharana is Kirana.
Kirana.
And we learned from many different teachers actually. We don't have one guru for Hindustani classical, we have many throughout North India. And we study with all of them, and they're all our gurus, and they have all taught us some amazing things. And yeah, we're grateful to all of them, and we visit all of them.
So who are those basically a teacher with whom you learn about the Hindustani classical music?
Yeah, so I said we have many different teachers. Yeah.
You want
some
specific names?
of them specific name here.
Our Varanasi guru is called Devashish.
And our first teacher we learned from in America. She was. I feel like we were very young when we learned from her, but sorry, I'm not remembering her name right now. But
We also have a few teachers in Delhi, which
we call everyone Guruji, so we don't, it's difficult to talk about that.
And what is your favorite raga in Hindustani classical music, and you love to listen it, and why this is so important in your life?
Bhairavi or Bhaira.
Bhairavi.
I think for me, I love Yaman.
Yaman.
Yaman is a great one, I love to sing. And also Mayakund is very nice.
Rag Marcos.
Mayakund, yeah.
So, do you have something to chant on a Rag Marcos?
Yeah, we could. Or maybe Yaman. Yaman is one of my favorites. I really love to sing Yaman, yeah.
Which one did you show me?
instrument you love it in the Hindustani Classical when you're singing about it, and you found that this is basically a perfect instrument with the voice.
Tanpura is the best.
Tanpura.
Yeah, because I love to play harmonium also, but when you're singing Hindustani Classical and you have the tanpura, you can really hear the voice. And when you're learning Hindustani Classical and you learn the tanpura, it will help your voice become better because you're not relying on the notes of the harmonium to match, you know? So, tanpura, I would say, what would you say?
I was going to say bansuri, but not with singing. It's just I played it when I was younger for a short time and I enjoy it.
And of course, kamla is the most important for tal. You need it when you're singing.
Of course.
So that's like foundational as well.
Yeah.
And how do you see India in the platform of Sanskrit? We found it a very less people are in India is interested about that particular language. What message you would like to convey through our medium to those the people who's learning and taking an interest in Sanskrit language? We have a Devprayag, our place where the mighty Ganga born, like Alaknanda and Bhagirathi met together. So the Uttarakhand government is making a Sanskrit university there.
Oh, really? That's very good. Yeah. Anyone who is keeping up this tradition of Sanskrit is doing very important work, and I hope they realize that.
So how important is Sanskrit in the daily lifestyle of your, like how which particular work or which particular area of your life this bhajans or this Sanskrit mantra help you?
Well, it definitely helps with mantra chanting, you know, for the correct pronunciation, and it helps us to unlock a vast amount of knowledge from so many different areas. You know, in Sanskrit we have the Vedas, but we also have so many texts on different subjects. So anything you're interested in, there's a text in Sanskrit that you can read, right? On yoga, Ayurveda, Jyotish, and you know, Vedic astrology. Any interest that someone could have, there's something in Sanskrit for them, you know? So it can apply to everything. And on a more mundane level, I would say Sanskrit is very helpful in my daily life for Hindi. You know, because I'm speaking Hindi, and through Sanskrit I can, you know, understand some more words, and also for Nepali, because I'm also learning Nepali now. We live in Kathmandu these days, and I'm trying to learn Nepali. Many words are
हिंदी कितना बोल पा रहे हैं ऐसा सब कुछ बोल रहे हैं?
हाँ जी, पूरा हिंदी आती है, क्योंकि हम बचपन से हिंदी में रहते हैं ऋषिकेश में, और मैं बहुत लोगों के साथ बात किया, और सब लोग
आप भी हिंदी बोलते हैं?
हाँ जी लेकिन मुझे और प्रैक्टिस चाहिए, और I want to keep improving and speaking more.
So what more you can share?
If you want to see what we were doing and at work, then you can check Instagram on Samadhi Collective, or our website samadhicollective.com. We're teaching you know, these sessions in Yoga Sutra, Mantra, Sanskrit, everything. And we'll be adding more soon. We'll keep adding new classes and new sessions based on what our students want to learn. And of course, both of us will keep learning more and more so that we can keep sharing more and more.
And my question is, when you're learning Sanskrit or philosophy, the Indian philosophy in Oxford University, so what are the writers basically you got opportunity to learn the books? Like, is it a writer from India, or is these are the writers from the West?
Very interesting question.
Like when we say about the first Veda, so Max Muller is a person from Germany. He translated our Veda into the German and the English language.
Exactly.
So how you see it? You read that Max Muller translation, or you read different author book?
Right. So the first translation of Rig Veda into English is by H.H. Wilson. Okay, so basically how I read everything directly from Sanskrit, because that's the source. And so the reason to learn Sanskrit is so that you don't have to rely on the translation, right? You can read directly from Sanskrit and you can make your own translation, your own interpretation. Exactly. But when you're learning and you know you're writing essays on different topics, then you may refer to some different scholars, and I would use both, Indian scholars and Western scholars in my work, depending on the availability of different topics or research on different topics. But for me, the most important thing was to go to the source of the actual Sanskrit text and form my understanding based on the Sanskrit words themselves, right? And then I can read some interpretations and other people's translations to substantiate what I translated.
And the student who's just starting their journey into learning a Sanskrit or a philosophy, what books you would like to recommend them to read, or what writers you would like to recommend them, how they can these books or these particular writer help them in their journey?
I would suggest they first learn Devanagari and the correct pronunciation of
The alphabet.
yeah.
I think first of all, the most important thing is to have the groundwork. And once you have that, it will become so much easier to read anything. So depending on whatever interest they have in whatever field, then they can choose the appropriate texts to practice and search for translations based on that. It's just so nice to be able to read in Sanskrit and understand each word, and then you really have a true connection to the source rather than relying, as I said before, on someone else's interpretation. Because between translations, there's many different, alterations or explanations added. So when you have the source, then you can take everything with that, and you have your own point of view as well.
Thank you very much for sharing your time and wisdom. So if you would like to visit about the Sanskrit learning thing, they have a website or Instagram page for a Samadhi Collective. From there you can get a little wisdom of the Sanskrit language.